Is it necessary to hide things from your family? After all, family is made up of the closest people we trust, with whom we share joys and challenges. From childhood, we are taught that honesty is the foundation of strong relationships. It seems that loved ones should know everything about us because they love and support us in any situation. However, wisdom tells us otherwise. Some things are better kept to ourselves, even if they seem insignificant. If you want to share them with your loved ones, it doesn't mean you're lying or being dishonest. It's more about protecting the peace and harmony in the family, as words and emotions can have a greater impact than we realize. Today, we will explore 3 important things that a wise person chooses not to share with their family. Let's find out why together. Part 1. Personal fears and doubts. Maxim was a man everyone could rely on. His wife saw him as a dependable support, and his children viewed him as a true hero. He knew how to solve problems, find solutions in difficult situations, and always radiated calmness and confidence. Even when everything around him seemed to be falling apart, he remained steadfast, setting an example for his family. But no one knew that sometimes his heart was gripped by fear. Like any person, he had his worries and doubts. Sometimes he feared that he wouldn't be able to handle challenges, that losing his job or failing in business would affect his family's well-being. At times, he was overwhelmed by thoughts of whether he was doing everything right, whether he would let down those who depended on him. During those moments, when everyone at home was asleep, he lay in the darkness, staring at the ceiling, contemplating dozens of possible outcomes. What if he couldn't provide his children with a proper education? What if one day he lost stability? Would he have the strength to protect his family from all adversities? The answers were not always clear, but he knew one thing: he had no right to break down. Could he share these fears with his wife? Of course, she would listen, support him, and say something reassuring. But what good would that do? Her heart would fill with the same anxiety he felt. She would start worrying, thinking, and perhaps even lose her peaceful sleep. The children, though they might not understand all the details, could notice changes in their parents' behavior and feel the tension in the home. Maxim knew his duty was to be the rock that withstood any blows of fate. He had no right to transfer his fears onto his wife or children. Of course, he could find ways to relieve stress, talk to friends, read self-development books, or exercise. But he decided that his loved ones should see confidence and strength in him, not doubts and fears. One day, serious problems arose at his work. The project he had been working on for a long time suddenly collapsed, threatening his career. His colleagues didn't know how to get out of the situation. Management was unhappy, and he realized that a crisis could strike at any moment. Coming home, he was greeted by his smiling wife, who told him about her day, and his children, who asked for help with their homework. They were calm and happy, unaware of the storm raging inside him. He didn't show it. He sat down to eat, discussed weekend plans, and asked about the children's school affairs. His heart still tightened with anxiety, but he knew this problem was his to solve. Maxim chose the path of a person who does not spread negative emotions. He didn't want his wife and children to worry about something that could upset or scare them. He understood that life is full of challenges, and the most important thing is not to transfer your fears to those you love. Eventually, he found a solution. After a few weeks, the situation at work stabilized, a new project was launched, and he remembered the past difficulties only as another lesson in life. His family never knew how much he had been struggling. They continued to live in harmony, feeling confident in the future. A wise person knows that personal fears and doubts are something to be addressed independently. Of course, the support of loved ones is important, but it's not worth making them hostages to your emotions. If every family member starts sharing all their worries and anxieties, they will only multiply. And instead of harmony, tension will reign in the home. Therefore, sometimes it's better to take control of your fears, keep them to yourself, and move forward with confidence. That is how true inner strength is formed. Part 2. Financial difficulties. Olga always approached finances responsibly. She knew how to allocate the budget properly, always had savings, and carefully planned expenses. Her husband trusted her with financial matters, and the children didn't even think about where the money for food, education, or entertainment came from. They lived in a world where everything was cozy and stable. But one day, everything changed. Problems arose in her business. Suppliers raised prices, clients delayed payments, and constant expenses increased. At first, she hoped these were temporary difficulties and that the situation would soon stabilize. But days turned into weeks, and the problems only grew. One evening, she sat down at the table, reviewed the financial reports, and realized that if the situation didn't change soon, she could lose everything. She didn't have enough money to pay the rent for the business premises, let alone pay her employees and settle debts. She was scared. She knew she could tell her husband everything. He would listen, support her, and maybe even suggest ways out of the situation. But at the same time, she understood that this would cause him great stress. He would start worrying, possibly even blaming himself for not being able to provide for the family independently. And if he lost faith in the future, it would affect his emotional state and the family atmosphere. She also thought about the children. They were used to living carefree, feeling safe. How would they react if they found out their mother was going through hard times? Would they start fearing every purchase or feeling anxious about the future? Olga made a decision. She wouldn't tell them everything. She would remain calm and strong, as she always had. Her task was not to create panic, but to find a way out. She began to act. She reviewed all expenses, figured out where she could save, refused unnecessary purchases, renegotiated contracts with suppliers, and tried to find better terms. She started working more, looking for new clients, and building relationships. There were moments when she felt like there was no way out, that she wouldn't be able to handle it. But every time she looked at her loved ones, she understood she had to keep going. After a few months, the situation began to improve. New orders appeared, debts gradually decreased, and she no longer feared losing her business. Most importantly, her family never felt these difficulties. If she had shared her worries from the beginning, what would have changed? Her loved ones would have worried, possibly even started living in fear and uncertainty. She saved them from this by taking on the full burden of responsibility. A wise person understands that the family should know the general state of affairs, but not all the details that could only sow panic. Sometimes, it's better to calmly work on solving problems rather than spreading fear among loved ones. And then, everything will surely work out. Part 3. Old grievances and conflicts. Petro grew up in a family where there was no warmth or understanding. His father was strict, sometimes even harsh, and didn't know how to express love. He believed that discipline was more important than tenderness, that authority was built on fear, not trust. Sharp words often echoed in the home, and sometimes voices were raised. Throughout his childhood, Petro felt a lack of support. He dreamed of hearing simple but important words from his father. "I believe in you. You did everything right." But this never happened. Instead of praise, he often heard only criticism. For many years, he carried this resentment within him. It seemed to him that he would never be able to forgive his father. In his youth, He promised himself that when he grew up, he would build a completely different family. One where there would be no room for shouting, where love and understanding would reign. Years passed. Petro grew up, and he had children of his own. His family became the one he had dreamed of. Warm, filled with love and mutual support. His wife knew he didn't like to talk about his childhood, but she never pressed him. He himself did not want to remember the past. Why didn't he tell his family about it? After all, his wife would surely have supported him, empathized, and the children might have understood what their father had gone through. But Petro knew this would not bring any benefit. If he started telling his children about how their grandfather had behaved in the past, it could sow hatred and rejection in their hearts. They might start judging a person they didn't even know, forming negative opinions about him. Moreover, old grievances could cast a shadow over their family. If you constantly return to the past, pity yourself, and remind yourself of painful moments, it will affect the present. And Petro did not want his past to control his future. He chose a different path, the path of forgiveness. Not because his father deserved it, but because Petro himself wanted to be free. He realized that as long as he held anger within him, it continued to influence him, and he did not want to pass this pain on to his children. Instead of telling them about harshness and injustice, he decided to show a different example. He became the father he had always wanted to have. He praised his children, supported them, never shouted at them, and never belittled their achievements. He showed that love is stronger than fear, that trust is more important than punishment. One day, his wife asked him, "You never talk about your childhood. Have you forgiven your father?" Petro paused. He didn't know if it could be called complete forgiveness, but he had done the most important thing. He had let go of the pain. He no longer held resentment in his heart. "I don't want my past to control my life," he replied. A wise person knows that not all wounds need to be reopened. Sometimes it's better to heal them quietly, so as not to pass the pain on to the next generation. Part 4. True Sacrifices for the Sake of Family. Irina was a person who always put her family first. She worked, took care of the children, supported her husband, and did everything possible to ensure harmony and warmth in the home. She could be tired, exhausted, and broken, but she never showed it to her loved ones. Every morning, she woke up earlier than everyone else, prepared breakfast, got the children ready for school, and then went to work. In the evenings, when everyone returned home, she greeted them with a smile. She listened to her husband when he talked about his difficulties, helped the children with their homework, and found time for everyone except herself. But no one knew that Irina also had her dreams. Once, she wanted to become an artist, paint pictures, and participate in exhibitions. She even received an art education, but life turned out differently. After the birth of her children, she put her passions aside. And then there were new worries, even more responsibilities. And eventually, she realized her dream had faded into the background. Could she have told her husband about this? Of course, he might have supported her, said she could pursue what she loved. But Irina knew it wasn't that simple. She didn't want her family to feel that she was sacrificing something for them. She didn't want her children to think they were the reason she hadn't fulfilled her dream. Therefore, she remained silent. She found another way to stay happy, small joys that didn't require much time. She drew in a notebook when everyone was asleep, sometimes looked at exhibitions online, dreamed and imagined what her own works would look like on gallery walls. Why did she hide this? Because a wise person understands that not all sacrifices need to be shown. Some things we do not because we are forced to, but because we love our loved ones. She knew her time would come, And most importantly, she remained happy because her family was happy. Sometimes wisdom lies in knowing not to emphasize your sacrifices, but simply to keep moving forward with love in your heart. A wise person does not hide everything from their family, but also does not share everything. There are countless moments when emotions, difficulties, and conflicts should not be brought to the surface. In such situations, it's important to know how to distinguish when honesty can bring benefit and when it will only worsen the situation. Perhaps sometimes it's better to protect your family from unnecessary worries and give them a sense of security. What do you think? Is it always necessary to be completely open with your family? Or are there moments when it's better to keep certain things to yourself? If you liked this video, leave a 10 in the comments. If not, leave a 0. Your opinion is very important to us. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.